without life. Mile after mile of burnt villages once inhabited by African farmers. I travelled through this area of Western Sudan, where hundreds of thousands of people were living only 6 months ago, to document human rights abuses that the government says are not happening. The only way in was with the rebels of the Sudan Liberation Army, who took up arms 14 months ago to demand an end to the destruction of Darfur. What I found not only corroborated reports of atrocities, but built up a picture of systematic ethnic cleansing with large-scale killings by militia and government forces. These displaced villagers are survivors of one of 14 massacres I documented, in which almost 800 people died. The government denies that civilians are being targeted. If they are, it says, it's by the Arab militiamen of the Janjaweed, not by the government. That's not what the victims say. They say it's Janjaweed and government together now. This family fled Darfur after 27 people were killed in their village, Toulouse. Interviews like this one with Kaltoum Yahya were done in Chad, without a rebel escort.
They came with cars and planes and started shooting and bombing. They took camels, goats and horses and burned our houses. They shot our children.
Hussein is 12 years old. He broke down when I asked him what happened as he tried to hide behind a tree with 3 other children who were even younger. In the end, the father had to intervene to explain how the boy was shot. 3 times and at close range. First in the face, then in the arm, and finally in the leg.
When the soldiers came, we went to the valley to hide. One man wasn't armed, but he called others who were. They shot us. They killed 3 of us and wounded 6.
I tried to get to Toulouse but couldn't. Janjaweed were camped in many of the burnt villages along the way. But I did manage to examine 3 other areas. One of them a 25 square mile block that had contained 14 Masalit villages. In this area, everything necessary to sustain life had been systematically destroyed. We could only find a few burnt groundnuts in the biggest of the villages. The government says the rebels are thieves and bandits. But all those I met had joined the SLA after being burnt out of villages just like this one. These were the only civilians I saw on my journey. They had crossed the border from Chad to look for food, but were returning empty-handed. Wherever I went, in village after village, the testimony was the same. It is civilians like these who are being targeted. This video has not been seen before. 17 civilians died in this village, Shoba, a year before the SLA took up arms. The war here began with attacks on African villages by Arab nomads seeking new grazing for their herds. The government initially armed the nomads as a proxy militia. Today, it is fighting with them. The war in Darfur differs from the war in southern Sudan in one key respect. The Africans of Darfur are Muslims, not Christians. This is not a war to defend the Islamic State. I was given the names of 62 villages where mosques have been destroyed, among them that of Imam Ishaq Abdullah.
They kill our imams, destroy our houses and burn Qurans. The Arabs have cows, they don't have planes, they don't have tanks. They attack our villages with cars and planes and tanks. This is the government.
The SLA commander of the Masalit area, Hamis Abdullah, is himself a Muslim. He says almost all Masalit villages have been destroyed in a war that is now about just one thing: race.
We are Muslims, just like the government. We Masalit don't think this is a problem. It is about ethnic cleansing of black Africans.
I was told that in Wadi Saleh, east of Toulouse, villages like these were hunted down after their villages had been burnt. This man comes from Wadi Saleh. Showing his face could cost him his life.
The government and Janjaweed surround the area and took 175 men. And in the evening, they took 136 to the valley. In the valley, they said to them to put their heads like this and shot them like this. Pop, 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 pop. Like this. One is wounded, and he come to my village and tell that story.
A year into the rebellion in Darfur, more than 1 million civilians are displaced, and relief agencies warn that 100,000 could die of hunger and disease in the next year if nothing is done. It is very late in the day for the international community to be taking action. This war began more than a year ago.
Contested areas. But as peace in one part of the country has been gathering momentum, fighting has increased over the last year in the western province of Darfur. Over 70,000 civilians have fled to neighboring Chad, and some 700,000 have been displaced. The Sudan government has declared an emergency and sealed off Darfur, but Channel 4 News has obtained some rare footage from the province. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Jonathan Miller reports.
The beginning of the end of Africa's longest-running war in Africa's biggest country. A cause for ululation if ever there was one. A few political hurdles still to negotiate, but Kenya's foreign minister, who hosted the talks, declared peace certain and irreversible. Hope at last, then, for the people of southern Sudan. The 20-year-old war has killed 2 million of them and uprooted 4 million others. Prospects for peace in the south. But in Sudan, all is not quiet on the Western Front, where the Khartoum government has started a new war, even as it talks peace with the southern rebels, albeit under hefty American pressure. Same old tactics, scorched earth and terror. The rapidly escalating conflict in Darfur province threatens to undermine everything the peacemakers have fought for.
They keep bombing us in the village. Now more than 6 people are injured. The bombings destroyed more than 60 houses.
7 members of my family were killed in an attack. We don't have anything. Nothing for the children or us. Nothing to eat. Not even berries. Look for yourself. You are a witness.
The witness in this case, a refugee activist armed with a camcorder. What he witnessed is the aftermath of a humanitarian disaster, ghost town after ghost town.
The Sudan government, they seal the area. They seal the area from the international media, and nobody knows really what's going on there. The government, they make clear to the international media, they say there is peace, and there is war to the other side, and there is ethnic cleaning, genocide. In the other side, I think there is no peace. How there is peace?
Government bombing and Viking-style raids by government-backed horseback militias have caused a massive exodus, says the UN. 3,000 Sudanese African Muslims have fled into neighboring Chad in the past 10 days alone, 30,000 in the past month, and nearly 100,000 since last April. Another 750,000 Darfuris are now on the run in their own barren land. Human rights investigators say civilians have been killed, raped, tortured, and children abducted. The rebel Sudanese Liberation Army's recently taken lost territory. Clinics, mosques, schools, houses lie burned or wrecked, livestock stolen. Why? Analysts say the Islamic Sudanese government just wants to show who's boss.
It's similar to what they've done in the south. I mean, the government has backed militias, both southern and northern, in the south to kill civilians in order to in order to move them mainly from the oil areas, but in order to divide to rule, in order to terrorize people, to break up any local structures. It's a means of taking power, of holding power politically.
So for all the praise it's earned parleying peace in Kenya today, More cynical observers see Sudan's government holding an olive branch in one hand while lobbing bombs with the other.
Jonathan Miller, you're watching Channel 4 News. Coming up to 7:30, our main headlines tonight. Questions in the House over the government's submissions to the Hutton inquiry. Tony Blair